And welcome back to Radio Free Eireann, WBA 99.5 FM in New York. And we're going over to Birmingham to talk to Paddy Joe Hill. Paddy, thanks very much for being with us.
Pleasure, Sandy. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, and as our audience should know, Paddy, you were framed by the British government for a pub bombing you had nothing to do with, and you were in prison for 16 years, even though at the highest levels of the British government they knew you were innocent. But now you're taking the time to crusade for the Craigavon 2, who are framed. Can you tell us a little bit about their case?
The case is quite simple. It was the first Catholic policeman to be killed in Ireland a few years ago. Two men were accused of waiting and coming out. He came out for a piece or something and they shot him. And the main witness, there's only one witness against him. And the main witness, Jerry Conlon, God rest his soul, Jerry got me involved in the case because he was over there and he was championing the case. And I went to the appeal, and the witness's father came to the court and told the judges, "You can't believe a word that comes out of my son's mouth. My son is a compulsive liar from he was born, and his nickname from he was a child is Walter Mitty." And on the night in question, when he said he seen them, he was about 50, 60 feet away from them. But on that particular night, he wasn't wearing his glasses. He had left his glasses at his father's house. And without his glasses, he can't see more than 8 feet. He's practically blind. All he can see is blurs. And yet the court still upheld went against the appeal. They upheld the conviction. Well, of course, this is typical of the British establishment. The one thing they hate is to be proved wrong. And unfortunately for innocent people, it takes 10, 12, 15, maybe more years before they finally admit. And of course, over here in England at the present moment, in the UK, the way it is, you're guilty until you can prove that you're innocent. The presumption of innocence is gone. That's how bad things are over here.
Well, Paddy, I think there's at least some similarity to your case. In your case, there was a horrendous IRA pub bombing, and there was huge pressure on the police to arrest somebody, anybody, and they found you and your associates, your comrades. And
yeah, that's correct. We were going home for a funeral in Belfast to James McDade. I grew up with James McDade, and Jerry Hunter and him and Richard McElkenny are related. And of course, we used to drink in Birmingham together when we met up socially, like, you know. But on the night in question, 2 bombs exploded in the city centre of Birmingham in 2 bars. And the result was 21 people were killed and 182 people were injured. And in respect of that, the police, the evidence against us was quite simple. They said that they had arrested us trying to flee the country. Yet, in actual fact, 5 of us went to the police station of our own free will to be eliminated from their inquiries. And we actually were, because I spoke to someone after I got out of prison in about 94, who was in the police force. He was in T14, the intelligence service at home. And he turned around and told me, he said, on the night of the Birmingham pub bombings, we were asked for background information on you 5. And he says, we told the Morecambe Police and Special Branch to let you go, that they knew all about you and that you were not involved in any republicanism or IRA activities. And that was it. But of course, when the police arrived, I was cleared by the Morecambe Police at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then when the Birmingham Police arrived, that was it. They turned around and told us right from the very beginning, quote, "We know you didn't do the bombings. We don't care who done the bombings. We've got you, that's good enough for us." And then he turned around and said, we didn't pick you. You've been selected. And he pointed at the ceiling and said, you've been selected by members at the highest level of government, and they've given us our orders. And he pulled a bit of paper out of his pocket and he shoved it under my nose and he said to me, "Read that, you little Larry's B." Look what it says there. Our orders are that we are to get confessions and convictions, and that we are to use any means that we have to obtain them. Now, we're covered all the way to the top. You can have it the easy way, and the easy way for them was for us to sign false confessions. And they told us that we didn't have to fill them out because they would fill them out themselves, which they did. And they turned around and told us that was the easy way. And then he made a circular motion with his finger round. He said, the hard way is round the effing walls. And that was it. They played football with us and tortured us for the next 3 days. You know?
But Paddy...
And unfortunately, Sandy, the thing about it was that the Birmingham, at that time it was the bomb squad, they used to call them. And the bomb squad and special branch had an informer in the Birmingham IRA. And on the Sunday night, they put our names up on the television before we'd even appeared in court. And the informer seen our names, and he went and got in touch with his handlers, and he told them, you've got the wrong people. And he made a detailed statement, and he gave the names of the 2 people who made the bombs, where they were made, and the names of the 3 people who came along and planted them. And they had that information within a week of the Birmingham pub bombs. But unfortunately, by that time, they had tortured and battered us so much that they couldn't go back. So they just carried on.
But Paddy, in the case of the Craigavon 2, who are Brendan McConville and John Paul Wootton, as you say, a police officer was killed, huge uproar, all over the press. They had to get somebody, and they had to get them quickly.
And these 2 guys are just 2 patsies. These 2 guys are completely innocent. I can assure you of that, Sandy. Jerry Conlon would not have got involved in the case if he thought for 1 second that they were guilty. And neither would I. But I am 1,000,000% confident that these 2 men have been fitted up by the police simply because they wanted a quick conviction. And that's what it's all about. It's not about innocence or guilt. It's all about convictions. Yeah, and that's the way the British establishment is going.
Well, some things never change, do they, Paddy?
No, nothing has changed. In fact, the only thing that has changed, Sandy, we've got an ongoing battle here in the UK. There's a number of people that have been released over the last few years. A young Irish boy from Dublin, Victor Nealon, and they had the evidence to show that it wasn't him. They had the DNA evidence, everything, and he served 17 years, and he was released 18 months ago. They threw him out of the prison gates at 6 o'clock at night, and they gave him £46 discharge grant, and that was it. Nowhere to live, no social worker, nothing, nowhere to go. And of course, now him and another young fella, Sam Hallam, who served nearly 9 years. Paddy George, who was convicted of the Jill Dando, the TV presenter, who served nearly 9 years. And we went to the Supreme Court a few months ago, and they turned around and said that even though they've been found not guilty, they're not innocent enough to receive compensation.
But I want to come back to your and my late friend Jerry Conlon of the Guildford Four, who, like you, was framed, and like Craigavon too, was framed. But Jerry, I know, did a very careful investigation in this case. In fact,
he did indeed, yes.
First said,
he did.
In the very beginning, he said, look, what I know for sure is that they didn't get a fair trial. He began with that, right? And then he investigated further. And then he said,
that's correct.
Not only did they not get a fair trial, they're innocent. But Jerry didn't leap to that conclusion. He came to it very carefully. No. He examined it.
Exactly. Jerry examined the evidence, and as he always does, and he spoke to me about it on the phone, and he sent me some of the paperwork, and I came to the same conclusion. These guys did not get a fair trial. In fact, they broke so many rules and regulations that's supposed to be laid down. But of course, that is typical of the police. They just do what they want. As I said to you, the only thing they're interested is getting a conviction. And they don't care whether you're innocent or guilty. As long as they get someone for the crime, they're happy. And unfortunately for innocent people, it takes years and years and years before they will. You've got the embarrassing to finally admit that they're wrong. And that is a very, very hard thing to do in today's, and over here, in this climate over here.
And as you know better than anyone else, you cannot rely on the courts for justice.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not. Courts are the last place. The last thing that the courts want to admit is that the lower court judges got it wrong. They always look after their own. And they will not go against them. You have to have... Even if some people come in and said they'd done it, they still wouldn't believe them.
Well, that is what happened.
Because they've already got a conviction.
That is what happened to Jerry Conlon.
Exactly. Look at Jerry's case. Joe O'Connell and the three men with him who were more commonly known as the Balkan Street Unit. When they were arrested, the first thing, they took them to 4 different police stations. And they held them in 4 different police stations. And they questioned them separately. And when they were asked, what was the first operations that you carried out in the UK? They turned around and told them, you've got 4 innocent people in prison for the Guildford and Wooley's pub drop bombings. We done that. In fact, Joe O'Connell told him it was him who actually threw the bomb through the window of the pub, the Horse and Groom. And yet, they got an appeal on those grounds. When they went to the Court of Appeal, the Court of Appeal judges turned around and stated in their summing up, yes, we admit that you did not do the Guildford and Wooley's pub bombings. We admit that in all likelihood, you have probably never ever been in Guildford in your lives. But we believe that you might have known these men and knew what they were up to, and you didn't pass on the information. So they sent them back to prison for another 13 years.
But now history seems to be repeating itself with the Craigavon too.
Exactly. It's repeating itself all the time. You know, they say that they haven't learned much. Believe me, they have, Sandy. They've learned how to cover up better. They have learned how to just fit people up left, right and centre. And it's commonplace. Here in the UK, we have about 2,000 people in prison at the moment that are screaming they are innocent. And nothing is done about it.
And what you told me and what Jerry told me was the only hope is if people speak out. That if you rely on the courts, if you leave everything alone, nothing will ever happen.
Nothing will ever happen. Definitely not, you know. And over the last couple of years, I've been working with the relatives of the people who were killed in the Birmingham pub bombings. I've been working with them to get at the truth. And, of course, as I keep telling people, we'll never get justice, Sandy. Never. They could never give us justice. But I'll tell you what, at the very, very least, the thing that we should have is the truth. And that is what they're hiding. Because in so many of these cases, it's people higher up who make the decisions. And that's what it's all about, protecting the people in very high places. Well, it's all about protecting reputations.
Well, you know, the Bible says the truth shall set you free, but the truth is very hard to come by.
It is over here. You better believe it. Very, very hard. No matter how many witnesses and what have you have, they just don't want to believe them. All they want is a conviction at the end of the prosecution. And they're very, very successful at getting that. Very successful.
Well, Paddy, thank you. Sorry. Thank you very much. It's always a privilege to talk to you. And I want to congratulate you for the work you do, not only for the Craigavon too, but for so many other people who've been unjustly convicted.
Thank you very much, Sandy, and I'll continue to do it until the day I die.
We know that.
I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be lying in a prison cell, and hoping and praying that someone would pick up the banner and start shouting and screaming for you. And for so many people in the prison system who are innocent, they haven't got a voice on the outside. They're more or less buried alive. But while we're alive and my organisation is alive, we will continue to champion their cause and to raise our voices for them. And hopefully we get a lot more, but we do definitely need a hell of a lot done in the judicial system in this country. It is rotten. Like I said outside the Old Bailey on the 14th of March 1991 when I got released, justice, they haven't got the intelligence nor the honesty in them to spell the word justice, never mind to dispense it. They're rotten. And believe me, they are.
Well, Paddy, thank you very much. We've been talking.
Thank you, Sandy, and Thank you to all your listeners for taking the time to listen to me.
Well, as I say, we've gone to Paddy Joe Hill of the Birmingham Six about the Craigavon 2. Now we're going to go to some music.